curses I was born to break, finding a way to overcome my fears. I am strong enough. There might be some bumpy roads ahead, but I'm equipped. I've learned some great lessons. The power lies in me. Now I see so clearly. All my steps are destined. I'm going in the right direction. Gotta keep believing in myself. Gotta keep going, don't give up. Yes, I'm gonna see this through. Yeah, I put my trust in you. The only way out is to go within. Now I see you're my best friend. Yes, I finally found my peace. I know that I can trust in me. It's a blessing that I've come this far. 'Cause when you feel alone, I know it can get hard. But I'm choosing gratitude, grace, love, and peace. You're always with me. All my steps are destined. I'm going in the right direction. Gotta keep believing in myself. Gotta keep going, don't give up. Yes, I'm gonna see this through. Yeah, I put my trust in you. The only way out is to go within. Now I see you're my best friend. Yes, I finally found my peace. I know that I can trust in me. I am connected to a love that never runs out. I am connected to a source that never runs out. I am connected to a love that never runs out. I am connected to a source that never runs out. I am connected to a love that never runs out. I am connected to a source that never runs out. I am connected to a love that never runs out. I am connected. I gotta keep believing in myself. Gotta keep going, don't give up. Yes, I'm gonna see this through. Yeah, I put my trust in you. The only way out is to go within. Now I see you're my best friend. Yes, I finally found my peace. I know that I can trust in me. Believing in myself. Gotta keep going, don't give up. Yes, I'm gonna see this through. Yeah, I put my trust in you. The only way out is to go within. Now I see you're my best friend. Yes, I finally found my peace. I know that I can trust in me.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am so thankful and blessed that you guys are here with us today. We have a special show, 100%, that I believe and I know that is going to encourage and bless your soul. In this day and in this hour and at this time, we know for a fact that the spirit and the essence of Bishop Carlton Pearson is still yet in the presence, in the room. It's within all of us. People have come to me or they will say things about letting him rest. And the thing is he said it before us that things will begin to flourish as the seed hits the ground. It's going to flourish. How about that, guys? I appreciate everyone that's in the room right now. Make sure you like and share this post. This is not about me. This is about us. I'm just continuing the work because guess what? There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of people that are looking ready to receive from us. There's so many videos and people that want to come against what Bishop represented, which to me is 100% fine because we're not necessarily here to push against anyone. We're here in love. Inclusion and being included means that you are included. I believe Jesus always had that intention, right? And in this place and in this time and in this hour where we are here today, you 100% are included. There are a lot of new people that have never seen or heard anything from Bishop Carlton Pearson. And one of the things I'll tell you is go to YouTube and go to the lives and go to the archives, and you'll find lots of information on lots of different things on expanded consciousness, on things whenever you start talking about inclusion. His books, Gospel of Inclusion, God is Not a Christian, Jew, etc. Those books are widely available. I plan to bring plenty of people to the stage, people such as our guests this evening that will have a beautiful and wonderful story. And before I have him come on stage, and a few things that I would like to do for you. And first, I want to have a special song by Bishop and Majesty.
Thank you for being out here tonight, all of you. And this, it could have been a lot colder. It's a little hard to sing and play instruments, I'm sure, Brian, on a cold night like this. But we're all here because we want to be together. We love the social gathering. We love the interaction and the energy that happens when people come together. And I'm proud to be here with my baby girl, Majesty, to sing. She insisted that I do this, even though we haven't rehearsed it a lot. But you don't know that because I didn't tell you, right? And if I forget some of the words, she's going to help me with it, too. So thank you, Brian. This is his arrangement. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide songs being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe helps to make the spirit rise. Although we've been here many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Well, they know that Santa's on his way.
Yes, girl.
And he's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase
Yeah.
to kids from 1 to 92.
Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Yes, Brian on the keys, give it up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
With frozen fingers like that, that's some good playing, man.
And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Yeah. Oh, although it's been said
Many times, many ways. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was special. That was recorded last year by Mike Williams in the Gathering Place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is still yet heavy on some of us, and is still yet hard to take in at times, even for myself. The best thing that I do is to still be able to revisit, still be able to go catalog and listen. The whole purpose of all of this material and the things that Bishop has created is so that we still can allow for what we received from his essence and spirit to live on. I will probably play that more than once throughout this December. And it was a wonderful, wonderful video to come across and be able to share with you guys. Tonight, I would like to introduce a young man that has had an experience with Bishop Carlton Pearson, a professor, theology, theologian, a guy that is an amazing person and a dear friend to Bishop. And he had an experience with understanding that he had a relationship with Bishop during a really during a time that was really tough in order to be associated with it. Most people don't have an understanding at the time and era when that was going down. Church members begin to need to scatter to a certain degree. Bishop was not really accepted. I believe the Episcopal Church was one place. Eventually he was accepted when he started going from higher dimensions to new dimensions. Eventually going to Chicago to a New Thought CUT church. Then eventually he came back to take care of his parents and he went to All Souls. But this person here was very special in Bishop's life, and they had a beautiful relationship. I want to take you on a little journey just because I had a little time to spend with Dr. Grimes at his office just to get to know this special person that to me is a special person when it comes to understanding things from the biblical literature and text and beyond. And he's yet still growing. You're going to see this person. He's going to be a part of this community because he's so knowledgeable. And he introduced me to a lot of different things. Take a journey and go to his office with me. And when we come back, I'll bring him on stage and we'll begin this session.
Absence of things. What does Hebrews 11:1 say? Let's look. I don't misquote it.
The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah, there it is.
So,
I'm an old man. My memories.
wait.
Yeah.
Oh, they got me really good when I was young. But here's the deal. What is faith in terms of when we look at what is the word derived from?
All of us are trying to build up bridges rather than to destroy them. Bridges of understanding. Bridges, as one might say as well, leading from one dimension into the next higher dimension. Why do I emphasize this dimensional view on the world of man over against the divine world, the more encompassing world? Because if we only speak of levels or layers, we
We're back.
I needed to shave.
Dr. Grimes. Well, that last picture, of course, was you and Bishop
Yeah.
when you were in Chicago.
In Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, you visit him in Chicago, and that also in that last video, that video we had, you were showing me Viktor Frankl and how Viktor Frankl was talking about higher consciousness and higher dimensions. But what I would like to begin with, sir, is give us a little bit of your backstory of
Sure.
course, how you end up, of course, knowing Bishop Carlton Pearson in the beginning. But let's just cut to the chase and get to you guys' relationship after 2000, I believe, 7.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention back to 1976 when I played
Go
drums
for it.
for Souls of Fire. I got to play drums with them, and we did some music for some of his meetings, and it was a great experience. And that's really when he and I first got acquainted. In 2007, it was a different atmosphere altogether, as many of you know and will remember. I was actually on a sabbatical. I'd been teaching at ORU for 10 years, Oral Roberts University. And I'm a 2-time graduate from ORU. Both of my children went to school there. And I had been asked by a publishing company to write a book about Carlton Pearson that they termed as kind of a response to what they were calling the Carlton Pearson phenomenon, where you've got a guy who's a televangelist. He's got a big church. He's got a huge following. He's on the board of regents at Oral Roberts University. And he begins to rethink some things and to come into some new understandings, which are really not new. They've been around for a long time. And he kind of ran into a lot of fear. And so I agreed to write this book, and Carlton and I were meeting, and I was interviewing him, and he had agreed for me to publish a book about him as long as he was willing to, as long as I was willing to let him read it before it went to press. And we agreed to that. And someone at the university found out that I was having these meetings with Carlton, and told the president of the university at the time that I was adopting a new theology, and I was promptly terminated from the university. It ended what had been a 32-year-long relationship, actually longer than that, because when I was a boy, I'd get up in the morning on Sunday mornings when my parents were still in bed and watch Oral Roberts on TV and watched him lay his hands on people and see them recover and experience great healing in their lives. And as a boy, I wanted to be able to touch people's lives like that, and to love people like that. So, yeah, it was quite a journey for me, and has been, continues to be.
Well, I believe that your heart at that time was just going to take place many, many years later, as in now.
Yeah, it's been 17 years since I left ORU, and and I will say that I would not be the man I am today if it weren't for Oral Roberts, weren't for the university. I learned so much there, and I learned through the experience of leaving there as well. So, Viktor Frankl would say, who spent years in Auschwitz as a prisoner of war during World War II, that it's through suffering that we learn. We learn a lot of things through suffering. And so now I'm in the grief work business, and I help people mend their broken hearts and find meaning in their lives. And it's adding a tremendous amount of joy and happiness and meaning to my life to do that. So
After you got terminated from Oral Roberts, what happened with your relationship with Bishop?
Well, I called him up. I said, Carlton, guess what just happened to me? He said, what? I said, I just got fired. He said, why? I said, because I'm friends with you. And I said, nobody gets to pick my friends. So he said, well, you're experiencing some of the pain and the rejection that this journey that I'm on has been for me. And so we were able to empathize with each other and resonate with each other and continue to be friends today. I'm, in my mind, I attended 100% of the services for Carlton. I was there for every viewing. I was there for every service because it was a healing time for me to be with him in that time, for me to sit out there while he was lying up there and ask myself, so what am I going to do? I'm 65 years old. He's 70. What am I going to do with the next 5 years of my life? And because 5 years from now, I could be right where he is. And, I heard a lot of people talk about the person he was and how much they loved him. And to me, I far prefer to think of him as someone who is, not as someone who was.
Yes.
To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so that's the way I look at things. And so he just transitioned from here to that other reality.
One way you could define to me as who he is the ability for people to still grasp or get some of the energy. I read a
Right.
lot of dead books by people that have been long gone. And now today we have things like this so that people can actually grasp and get the essence of possibly who he was and is, and also how does that apply to their lives. So if anyone is watching that has never watched this, and as you begin to learn more about who he was, ultimately his message was 100% absolute love. And we all experienced that, I believe, with Bishop. Um, and so when you guys, of course, out of all of these different transactions, I mean, different things happens. You end up going to um, Chicago to visit, and whenever he returned back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, all throughout those years, did you guys ever tell me some things that you learned from him or got from him? Because you are in the process of writing a book and you got a lot of documentations and stories that we will hopefully get into later on.
Yeah.
But is there anything that stands out to you in the essence of Bishop Carlton and his message of inclusion? One of the things you said, I will let you talk a little bit more about it, where you said something about he really wasn't saying anything that was new per se.
Well, the gospel has always been a gospel of inclusion to me. I mean, because at 19 years old, when I had been raised in the church, but at 19 years old, when I kind of found my way to knowing Jesus as Savior and Lord, as we say, I he took me just as I was, accepted me. He included me just as I was. I didn't have to change in order to be accepted. Now, the Holy Spirit moved into my life and began to remodel this house named Dan Grimes from the inside out. And that love, God is love, that love began to permeate through me and begin to change me and made me a better man. And one of the things I'd have to say, what did I learn from him, from being around him, is that even though he was badly treated by a lot of people, I never saw him quit loving people or responding in a loving way. I know it was a lot of pain there. It was very painful to all of a sudden not be accepted, to be summarily rejected by the church, to be called a heretic. and it was painful for him. But I never saw him respond in a way that was not loving.
As a theologian, tell us what a heretic is.
Well, oh man.
Over time, even just from your own self.
Oh, to me, it's a word that I'm just sharing with you my convictions. You won't have to throw a rock very far to find somebody that disagrees with me, or maybe even thinks I'm a heretic, right? But to me, the word heretic goes back to the Dark Ages, to medieval times, when the church was making people who had said things that are different from the dogma and the dogmatics of the church, making them recant. And if they didn't recant, they were found to be a heretic. And, they were often killed for believing the wrong thing.
So it's nothing new, correct?
No, it's nothing new at all. In fact, to me, the word heretic, probably we should retire it. I mean, if I'm going to call anybody who disagrees with my understanding of God a heretic, or how God works in the world, or how salvation works, or anything like that, then I'm reminded 1 Corinthians 13 says we look through a glass darkly. We know in part, but there will be a time when we will know fully, even as we've been fully known. And so there are things that I was absolutely convinced about and convicted of when I was 21 years old and fresh out of Bible college. And then I went to graduate school, and then I worked on my doctorate. And then probably the thing that has affected my understanding of God more than anything is the practice of ministry, is working with suffering people, and the people that Jesus hung out with that gave him a bad reputation, the publicans and sinners and prostitutes and people that were broken people. Jesus spent a lot of time with, and he was Jesus was called a heretic by the temple, by the Sadducees and the Pharisees. So I guess Carlton was in good company there.
Yes, we will go on to understand and know as we continue to expand. We have no choice because the expansion happens outside of us and within the universe. There's a lot of deep study on the expansion and the expanding universe. If it didn't, we wouldn't have this conversation.
Right.
The reality of this conversation is there's a lot of ones and zeros. There's a lot of information that I normally deal with called computer programming, and then the engineers make it appear as though we just making things simply happen. So the thing is like we're expanding, and also we have to expand spiritually. We have to
Right.
evolve spiritually, because if we don't, we would still be thinking about like what it was like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. I mean, you can keep on going, and it was nowhere near like it is today. So beautiful story. And
Let me just say that for me, the gospel is
Mhm.
this simple. God loves you. All God wants is for you to love him back.
How so?
Heart, mind, soul, and strength. Neighbor as yourself. And then that neighbor as you love yourself. So maybe the most important person for us to learn how to love is ourselves, so that we know how to
Mm.
so we can learn how to love our neighbors. Because if I don't know how to love myself well, how do I know how to love my neighbor well? And so to me, that's the gospel in a nutshell. God loves you. All he wants is you to love him back. And then there are some things beyond that where we're kind of called to join him in a mission to establish this loving kingdom that he came to establish in the world. That's my understanding. Okay.
And I believe all of our understandings is nothing without us. Is there a
Right.
God without us?
Uh,
Who's the observer?
right.
See, It's now moving out. I see. Of course, I'll bear you guys because I'll start getting into duality and outside of duality because God exists, just is, right?
Right.
But we could get into the is, and that's where we're going. We're going into the is, just to be, right? Just to be,
Being. Yeah.
just to
Be
be.
human beings, not human doers, right?
Grief,
Yeah. Grief.
grief. Tell
Want
me
to talk
about.
about grief? Yeah.
Tell me
Well,
about.
from my understanding, everybody has a story, and everybody needs their story to be heard and understood, because we all have broken hearts over one thing or another. Grief's not just about somebody died. We all have hopes and dreams and plans for our lives, and when they don't pan out the way we hoped for, when they get crushed by something, um, they could have been better, it could have been different, it could have been more that it turned out to be. We get disappointed. We experience loss, and that, another word for loss, is grief. So 100% of human beings are grievers. We're grieving something. And I think if you are not aware that you're grieving something, you're probably need to become more self-aware. Um, there's something that all of us have been disappointed about, and it somehow hangs on us, um, and so we need our hearts mended, and that's the work that I do, and I help people to mend broken hearts, and I try to help, and I help people find meaning in the midst of the situations that they're in. Um, and there are both tangible and intangible losses that we experience. You lose your grandmother, that's a tangible loss. Your career falls apart, and you've gone to school. I know lots of clergy who've been to school for years and years and years, and now things didn't work out in the ministry, and now they're working a secular job somewhere, and they feel like a total failure because their plans didn't work out the way they hoped that they would, and they're grieving that. And it's tough when you're, especially because we have this thing called calling. If you're called to the ministry, it's a big deal. To me, if you decide to be a follower of Jesus, you're called. And then First Corinthians 12 talks about being members of the body, and we all have different functions, and none are more important than any other. So the people that are out front, they often get paid salaries to do this, and the people in the back who give money into the plate so that people can get paid their salaries. We've created a hierarchy in this thing called church that is it's an economy. It feels a little bit like a business, and,
Yes.
and I'm not sure it should.
Well,
But
it's adapted that through the governmental system and the way it works, right? It does have a choice, but as we move outside of that choice is going into relationship with the self, relationship with others, right? And then the deep heart concern of others over their salvation, of commitment to your organization, because
correct.
that's really what you're committing
Yeah,
to.
because they become enmeshed. Those ideas become enmeshed with each other.
I feel that way sometimes, brother, with worship. Like if you go, I can't do it anymore. I can't go into, like, don't get me wrong, when Bishop had his services and things there, I was connected and felt it because of the fact that there was this common collective of this person's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going into a building sometime when you do worship, it's almost like we're worshiping each other, right? Because whenever I come into my house and I meditate and I go into nature and I begin to do things myself alone, and the more deeper I go into, there is no worship. There's no worship that compares to understanding who you are and the fact that you're on this journey we call life. right? And there's these vicissitudes of understanding that
Mhm.
it's not going to always be the same. And with Bishop's transition, I think it really does mark something special in the course of time for our lives, especially the ones that have been involved with Pentecostal, charismatic, non denominational evangelicalism, and the Christian faith at large, because it has dominated this country for centuries. And I believe it's time that we have to still yet evolve because the world around us is evolving. And if we don't evolve, looks like we're going to come for each other, and it's going to just get worse and worse and worse, because that's when it starts getting bad, is when we start going towards a person's belief and attacking. And because I don't believe in all these people that's attacking Bishop. It's like you can go back and talk to those people or say something sometime. I get it. But at the same time, my thing is like, where are we going? Let's focus on us. Let's learn how to love ourselves. Let's learn how to help those who need help. And going back to this grief, how does this grief work relate to your ministry work and studying to be a theologian, and being a pastor? And to me, it's like, I think every pastor or person should get involved and take courses or get a connection to some therapeutical work like this.
Yeah, how to help people with their grief was not any of the content of seminary when I went to school. But I have been doing. I mean, as soon as you get, I think the first week I was appointed to be a pastor right out of seminary, I had to do a funeral for a little old lady in the church, and immediately you're doing grief work with people, and so it's an important thing to understand, and grief is a natural and normal response to loss of whatever kind. Um, if you didn't have the relationship with your parents that you hoped for, your dad or your mom, you grieve that, and it's into adulthood. It shapes most of the people that I do grief work with. It's really kind of interesting. I'll have somebody come in whose wife died from cancer 3 months ago, and I get to working with this fella, and he wants to process his disappointment feelings about his father, and we spend a lot of time talking about that, and it's really fascinating, that one grief will trigger our feelings about unresolved grief in a previous part of our lives, and so it's yeah, it's about the things that could have been better, could have been different, could have been more. Anything that falls in that category is something that we grieve. um,
So
I mean,
what are some given the fact that uh, Bishop just transitioned, what are some things that people may experience, what people may go through, what are things that people should or may do? Is it okay that a
yeah.
person goes and watches his videos? Is like, because some people want you to move on, and then plus in the church, a lot of times you can hear, "Well, God's got it. You need to turn it over to God." It's like they just want you to hurry up and
Oh, they don't want you to stop feeling. Don't feel anything. Just move on. Get over it. Those are things that we say to people that are grieving that are inappropriate to say. You don't get over losing somebody. You get through it. And so Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote these famous the stages of grief that the grief process: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And so a lot of people have, and those were written for people who have been told that they are dying. So Malachi, you just get word that you have a terminal disease. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance are the stages of grief that um, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross prescribed, but they were for the person who's been diagnosed. The problem is that they've been applied to the people that are left behind after somebody dies. And it's not linear like that. It's not linear for the person who's been told they're dying either. It's kind of cyclical. You can get angry and you can begin bargaining, and then you can double back and be in denial. I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm really dying. But I've worked with a lot of terminal patients in my hospice work. I've been doing been a hospice chaplain for 10 years, but also a VA chaplain at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Muskogee. And it's just not that simple. It's there are people who are still shocked and in disbelief about CDP dying. And there are people who are just sad about it. Maybe there are people who are feeling some guilt about, that whole thing, not speak ill of the dead, right? So there are things that I've said about Carlton, and now he's gone, that, I'm feeling a little guilt about it. I'd like to take those things back that I said, or maybe they're angry, or maybe they're afraid. There are even the psychosomatic physical pain things that can come on us as a reaction to grief as well. But there's no real linear or like a math problem, right? It's not this plus this plus this plus this. It's kind of like a soup, like tears soup. This pain, where this loss we're feeling, the tears, and it just falls into a bowl and makes this soup, and all these feelings. One of the things I try to help my clients understand is that there are no feelings that are bad feelings or good feelings. We have a tendency to say, well, these are good feelings and these are bad feelings. Feelings are just what they are. They're neither good, they're neither, and they should always be validated. If you're feeling angry, it's okay to be angry. What you do with your anger may not be good, right? And there are certainly some feelings that are more pleasant for us to experience than others, right? I'd far rather experience, the feeling of being satiated after a good meal. Oh, that's a good feeling, than frustration over, I can't put this baby bed together. I can't get all the parts that fit together, But the feelings are feelings. They should not be, there's no shame that should be attached to any feeling. They should be felt and processed. Viktor Frankl says, this guy we've mentioned before, that between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. There's a space and time between the stimulus and the response. And in that space, we get to decide what our response is going to be. And it's in that space where we grow and we develop new skills. Now, you notice I'm using the word respond. And I'm not using the word react. We do need to, there are situations in life where we need to react. If you're driving your car and the tires lose their traction and you start spinning around, you don't need to take a while to respond to that situation. You need to react quickly, right? So I try to not even allow reaction in my personal relations with people. I try to not allow reacting to even be on the table. I want to, in a mature way, use that space between the stimulus and the response to grow and choose well and wisely how I'm going to respectfully and lovingly respond to the stimulus. And so those are some of the kind of skills that I try to teach my clients, and to move beyond the deep, not beyond, that's not a good word, to move through the deep pain of grief into finding some meaning in it all.
Yeah, I definitely find meaning in doing this, because it's the shocker of it is how fast it took place. Like it
Mhm.
you seen it happening, but it was surreal.
Yeah. And I was
Uh,
going to respond to what I was going to respond to what you asked me about this thing, this watching the videos and that kind of thing. I mean, I think a very healthy a part of grieving is to pull out the family album and look at the pictures and to have all the. I mean, when was the last time you went to a funeral and they didn't show a long video of all the pictures of the person's life and take you down memory lane and help? That's a processing of grief that is helpful and healthy. And I don't think there's anything unhealthy about continue. I mean, there's lots of famous preachers that people go back and read their books and listen to their tapes and watch videos of about their lives. And how is this any different?
right. Well, I think the only true difference with it is the fact that Bishop has a lot of work out there,
Right.
and this work is transformational. And it's
Okay.
been a while since the church has done anything transformational since possibly the Pentecostal movement, right? Everything has just been added, enhancements, right? They come out of the way they were viewing the Bible, viewing the scriptures, and they felt more, they wanted more, and they felt like this is the power of the Spirit. This is something deeper. This is something more. Um, and then, of course, I believe there were some blendings of other spiritualities that went into Pentecostalism. We just, no one really says it. African spiritual, um, like hoodoo and things of that nature. It's clear that you can see that some of these things were applied. The shouting and dancing that was never in a church, and it never was. You can't. I'm pretty sure they didn't have Hammond organs and uh, things that we would have in the church today back, especially back, 2,500, 3,000 years ago. Um, they would
Yeah.
dance. They would
Before.
dance and do things, but it wasn't nowhere near like, oh, we're in church doing this.
Right. Right.
Um, this is things that we have adapted and adopted, and we
Mhm.
call it church.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Um, I think one thing is you're doing it, and that is we begin to learn and we begin to get smarter. We begin to understand more. Like a church could have been doing grief counseling and dealing with grief from this perspective years ago. Um, there's a lot that we've could have done, but the thing is human consciousness does not move nowhere near collectively as fast as it does within technology uh, in spaces,
Right.
very elite or elect spaces. That's the reason
Mhm.
why typically, if you look at Bishop's work in the expansion of individuals and people, it's
Mhm.
just different when you go to various levels of education and what people are comfortable and with and used to having. I sometimes I even go and look at people's um they'll say something, related to Bishop or related to what he's talking about, and they'll start quoting scripture and they'll start just basically going over their subconscious programming.
Mhm.
And you look at the profile and you can kind of say, like, I understand like the reason why you should feel like you should feel. I get it. Like, because it would be a very scary situation in understanding, like, I've been spent my grandma spent the lifetime, my great grandma or my grandma spent a lifetime going to this church, doing this thing, telling us this, and then now I'm going through it, and now my kids is learning it. It's
Right.
gonna be can be really difficult. Could there be a grieving process for people that are beginning to learn about the the inclusion, the ideal or the concepts? Because inclusion to me is not a it's not necessarily a new religion.
Mm.
Um, people thinking it's like it's a new religion, like universalism is not a new religion. It's been around, correct? Um,
Right. It
would a
has.
person actually say, okay, I feel like I get it. I hear Bishop Carlton Pearson, I hear his people that are carrying on the message. Would they have any grief of what they experienced in church? And now it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what do I do now? Because I think I've heard some people dealing with grief with, I don't know what church to go to.
Yeah, I think it depends on how seriously you take yourself as a believer of the doctrines you've been taught. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I went to Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri,
Oh,
and I became a graduate from an Assembly of God Bible College, right? And then I showed up a few years later after I did some church work at ORU for seminary, and I was ready to either change careers or retool. I mean, I had this sense of calling on my life that was kind of driving me, and I thought, well, I don't want a different career. I feel called to do this, so I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go to seminary. I'm going to retool, and I decided that I was going to trust the Lord with my theological development to the degree that I was going to take everything I'd ever learned out of my head, take everything I'd ever learned out of my heart, and put it on the table and say, is this what I'm supposed to believe? And in other words, be willing to even say it's possible that something I've believed so far is not correct. And so I'm willing to trust my theological development to the guidance of the Holy Spirit and these professors that I'm going to sit under. And there's always that, there's those folks who will say, well, you went off to school, you got your learning and you lost your burning. But instead, my burning increased and my understanding of the things of God increased. And I came away thinking, you know what? There was a time in my life when I was sure I was right. And then there's some things that I learned, and I found out that some of those things that I believed in the past were not right. And that's okay for me to grow and develop and expand my understanding of the things of God. And as a result, I didn't experience any grief per se. There were some times when the professors taught us some things and I was like, wow, I got to think about that. And so I think it's important to recognize that Jesus's final commandment was love one another as I have loved you. So that was pretty sacrificial love, right? And so if I'm going to, I guess what it boils down to is I believe it's more important to love than it is to be right about what or there's a difference between being right and being righteous. Love drives righteousness. And sometimes pride drives what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. And if you come to some realization that all this time I've been believing this and I found out I think it's not right, you can feel shame, you can feel guilt, you can feel grief. And I think the Lord, his love transcends whether or not I'm right or wrong about everything I believe. Because after all, I do look through a glass darkly, right? And there will be the time when I'm face to face with him that I will know fully, even as I've been fully known. So I go on and on. I hope I'm not.
No, it's beautiful. That's the whole point, is for us to get kind of an awareness and a connection to who we are, and this whole process of connecting to the authentic self is what I usually like to say, the divine self.
Mhm.
I believe and know that there's more to life than we always want it to be. And the way I will say that is, coming from my background, which deals a lot with engineering and science and creating, being a god, create like a miniature, you couldn't create things. Everything we have on here has been created by us. And One of the things I believe is, like, if you look at the radio frequencies that we have, the air that are controlled by the FCC,
Mhm.
have they always existed?
They have.
So we've had these frequencies that existed that most people still can't understand what Wi-Fi is. They don't understand what radio waves are and the spectrums and how they govern this. So there's spectrumed waves in the air we use to transmit information and other things. And it just works, and we don't think about it, especially if we're not the engineer or the scientist or the physicist and all the people that are involved in, from the concept to the implementation. And my thing is, spiritually, God would be a part of that. If you look at Nikola Tesla's research, you look at some of the greatest scientists' research, a lot of them, the deeper they go, the more they be like, okay, I didn't tap into the God factor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if those things existed in the eras way before this, 100 years, let alone, let's say, 200 years, 2,500 years, 3,000 years, what else is out there that we don't know? What else
You know,
have we not discovered?
I've made 5 trips to Russia. I did my applied research for my doctorate in Russia, and then later on got invited there to be a part of a university conference on faith and humanism. And so while I was there, I met a physicist, and I asked him. I said, "So you're a physicist?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "And of course, this is Russia, right? Where they've been taught that the religion is the opiate of the masses, right? That's what Marxist Leninism taught. And for 70 years, the church, you couldn't even attend church. And I showed up there in Russia just a year after the churches had been reopened after the wall fell. So people were able to go back to church again. It was amazing. So I met this physicist and I asked him, I said, "So are you a believer?" And he said, "I don't know how anybody could be a physicist and not believe in God, the way this world is ordered." And I thought, what a fascinating response from a scientist.
Yes. And they have more of their own proof than a belief in the words in the scriptures and how those words apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I know that you could feel and a person can feel it. But I don't know too many times that a person has dug into the scriptures and, come up with the iPhone. Now you could be inspired. You could be inspired to do something, but yet though just be able to say, I read my Bible and it gave me the implementation for quantum physics. Like, I believe you could be inspired, but the thing is that, and I just know and believe that God is so much more than we know. The limitations that we have had on it or is limiting us. And through this interaction and through Bishop's work and through where we're going to take this, I want everyone to know that innovation, as we expand our consciousness and begin to understand Christ in the consciousness that we can possess and have, and we do,
Right.
you can imagine the things that we can accomplish. And
Mm-hmm.
all of it is on the basis of love.
Well, there's a theological concept called imago Dei. Those are Latin words that mean image of God, right?
Mhm.
And so one of the Christian teachings is that all of humanity is created with this in the image of God. I mean, it's in the first couple of chapters of the book of Genesis, right? And it's in our image we made humanity. That's what the word says. In fact, it is the word for God there is a plural, in the plural, meaning we believe speaking as the Trinity. And so whether I acknowledge God with my life or believe at all, I still have the image of God in me. And I think that this creativity, this ability to come up with new inventions is, I prefer to think of it as it's a part of the Imago Dei that's in every human being. And I think that's a pretty beautiful thing. I mean, so these, whether it's writing music or writing books,
Yes.
or creating new electronics, the iPhone, the Tesla, all this, I think
Yes.
it's part of what the spark of God that has been put in to every human being. And it's, I think it's better, and those things flow better when we do acknowledge that I do have that. I am I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm seeing the Imago Dei in front of me today. When I look at, it's easier for me to love myself, have a loving relationship with myself, so that I can love my neighbor. If when I look in the mirror, I don't see something that, whether it's about body image, which is, I will confess, it's something I've struggled with my whole life, going all the way back to my childhood. Body grief, body image issues has been something I've struggled with. And that's part of the work that we do at the Grief Recovery Centers, help people that have different diseases and things that disfigure their bodies. Maybe it's an amputation or whatever, to help them, because that's a loss, right? I have a pastor friend of mine who recently passed away, who about 6 months before he died, he lost both of his legs. And I saw him at his granddaughter's wedding. And I went up to him and I said, you're grieving, aren't you? You're grieving. I said, because those nerves are still there. You can still feel your toes, and your legs aren't there anymore. He said, he started crying big. He said, yeah, it's true. But I learned that in my work at the VA hospital in the rehab department with amputees, soldiers who'd lost their limbs or had to have them removed because of diabetes or whatever the case might be. And yeah, it's a real thing.
Well, sir, I really appreciate you for your time, and I appreciate you for
It's kind of a heavy note to end on.
No, the thing is it is what it is. And we could always raise the vibration back up,
Yeah.
in the sense that, it's a grief and suffering is something that we do. But
It's never something we should do alone. We are hardwired for connection to other people, and you cannot be known by being alone. So if you're grieving something, find somebody to share it with. We are told in Scripture to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. And I think that means that when I rejoice with you, it doubles the joy. And if I weep with you, it cuts the sorrow in half, or by some dimension anyway. I think that's why we're supposed to share our joys and our sorrows with each other.
beautiful. The last thing I'd like to too mention is like some of the work that you're doing currently and discovering about not only just inclusion but expanded consciousness, and especially from a biblical standpoint. What's the book you were just quoting from?
It's called there we go. The Philokalia. This is a book of a collection of writings from the early church fathers, and in it they talk about some of this understanding of what we might call frequency or vibrations, where with God, in connection with God. I'm just learning about it. These I come from a biblical theological background, right? And so these words, these scientific words, the Bible's not a science book. It's a faith book, right? So it doesn't have science words in it. So the words that science has developed are used to describe things that were still around during biblical times. We just didn't have the words for them, right?
Correct.
But they were still experienced.
Correct.
Right. So I don't know. I'm still working on learning that stuff.
Oh no, I believe that what you're saying is absolutely correct. And the thing is where we're going, there are no words for us to explain some of it. Like when
Right.
you look at inclusion, it's like, is there another word that you can explain or you can use? Most likely, it's a word that may have to be developed. Um,
Well, it reminds me of the old hymn. You ask me how I know he lives. He lives in my heart. That's all I can tell you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I just showed you guys. It was a little um blurry, but I'm sure you get it. This is Heart Med, the Grief Recovery Center of Oklahoma.
That's
You
it.
could actually um just look it up online. Heart Med, the Grief Recovery Center of Oklahoma. He can, of course, talk to people online. You can watch this in replay so that
That's
you
my
can.
phone. That's my phone number there. So that if you call that number there, it goes right here. So I'm
There
putting,
you go.
putting
You're
myself out there.
Well, I think it has more to do with the fact that I think a lot of people can benefit and use um, services like this. And it's one thing that I definitely would like to bring to the community at large. And on a last note, too, I know that I want to maintain and manage and keep things functioning and new dimensions, too. Let's go ahead and go ahead and throw a donation, give a donation, if you will, to New Dimensions 2, $ New Dimensions 2. There's the mailing address. They're still pushing forward and taking care of things, taking care of all of the things that are to be taken care of at this moment with Bishop's transition. Sir, I appreciate you for your time.
My
Um,
privilege. Thanks for
and you are a part of us now. We, for me, I like to include people that really bring something to us, really bring something. If you guys have any questions, I don't think I've seen any questions over here on the side. There's some comments, a lot of great comments here. Love the reference to the fathers. Um, Thank you, MindStep Social. She helps me out with a lot of managing over there on YouTube. And no questions here. All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. And what I'll do, of course, when we end this little session here out, I want to do some little different things for people because I do it a lot for myself, and that is I had a video that Carlton, our bishop, when he and I first started to really wanting to ramp this thing up, I wanted to play this short video. I haven't edited this video or anything, but it's just something that I want to, talk about ending on a good note, right? And this is something I think will bless you. It sure blesses me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's watch this real quick.
Okay. All right.
That's something that you guys got to know. If you're around him like I was around him, he does that all the time. He would just have this melody or this singing, not paying me attention because I'm always recording. And we were on our way to Best Buy and we got his computer set up and got everything set up. And that's what that video was. And it was all it, that little singing is something that he that he always would do. So blessings. Well, we're gonna close out here once with this song that he used to love that we would do during this season. And this is Majesty singing. And I played this at the beginning last week, but I want to play this. And while we're playing this, we're going to do what Bishop would tell us to do. And I want you to just enjoy the song and hug yourself. Thank you, Dr. Grimes.
You're welcome.
And let's go ahead and just enjoy this little piece of music here.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Oh yeah, have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. Oh, here we are, as in olden days. Happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are near to us, gather near to us once more. Oh, through the years, we all will be together. If the fates allow, hang a shining star upon the highest bough. Oh, yeah. So have yourself a merry little Christmas night.
Nice.
What do you think about this question here, sir?
Depends on how you define it. If you define it as a memory, it'll last for the rest of your life. It's not something you get over, it's something you get through. And so the intensity of it will change. But if somebody meant a lot to you, you're never going to forget them. And I'm not sure you should. So, but your relationship with that loss, those feelings, it depends on whether it's actually somebody who died, or, you know, if you're grieving over losing a career, or you're, you know, go bankrupt, or lose a spouse to divorce, or a relationship. Different griefs are experienced differently. And so there's not an easy, quick answer to that.
I think that was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Yes. Seems like you are really loved, Doctor.
Yeah.
I will be in touch, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for including me tonight. This is great.
Awesome.
I've already gotten some messages on my phone.
Well, hang on one sec,
Yes,
and
sir.
we'll close this out.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.